Okay, so hi, I'm Thurston Howell. I'm a bigender, they, them writer and editor. I work for Sinister Stoat Press and Thurston Howell Publications. And I really manage anthologies for Thurston Howell Publications and manage a lot of the horror stuff for Sinister Stoat Press.
And I'm Izzy, otherwise known as Weasel. I am a queer Latinx author. I'm a domestic violence survivor, and I'm the owner and the dude of Weasel Press.
Yep. So we want to start today with a bad joke. Why didn't the publisher accept my erotica? He said the plot was full of gaping holes. Okay, so unlike both of our previous panels, this one isn't going to be as organized and well thought out as previous ones. Not because we don't care about this panel, but just because it's such a open thing that I'd rather this one feel a lot more organic in terms of its conversation, as opposed to some of the previous panels that I've done. So the general idea of this panel is we're talking about payment and money when it comes to furry, which is a very highly debated topic in furry writing and publishing and editing circles. So there are three main points of money happening when it comes to books. There's paying authors, there's print and distribution costs, and then there is the royalty. I guess that's really the payment of the authors. There's really just two. There's paying the authors. I guess the third thing is just what money do we get as publishers. So I guess there's those three different aspects of money in furry publishing. So I guess I'll have you talk about the first bit, which is paying authors.
Okay.
Do you want to start by giving some just background on that?
Yeah, so for any anthology that I do in the fandom, I do try to ensure there is some form of payment.
Mm-hmm.
Some form of financial payment, I should say. When we first started out, we did try doing contributor copies. We did try doing none of that at first. And I think the first time we really started, we were doing flat payments, kind of like what THP does now.
Mm-hmm.
And today, you can find that we do them like a cent per word or half cent per word. And just for record, like the standard in furry publishing, to my knowledge right now, is a half cent per word on an anthology.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a couple of people out there that do 1 cent per word, or maybe a bit more. It just depends on that publisher. I know for me, because I can't speak, all that money that gets paid to the author comes out of my pocket and my paycheck.
Yeah.
And so we have anthologies right now that I'll be paying for. I'm unemployed at the moment, so I don't know how that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it will definitely happen. I do my best to try and ensure payment to an author. Because I never want the author to feel as if they're unappreciated or as if their work doesn't matter. Because in the fandom, we do want to promote. We want to promote paying our authors.
Yeah.
We don't want them not to get paid.
Yeah.
So a lot of it comes out of my own pocket. And I know for Omer, let's just take Omer for example, because that was the last thing that comes out. And Ocean said in the chat, paying the artist, and yes, that's definitely something that happens too, and that comes out of my pocket as well. For Omer, it cost us about $700 around about, because we had to pay the models, we had to pay the authors, we had to pay for the print costs, and it's a book that's in color, so it's quite more expensive than your average. So a lot of funding went into that. What we received in return was about $300, maybe about $280 in return on sales, and we get about $2 a book. So whenever someone buys a book, we get about $2 for that book. It's not like we get the full 16 or we get 10. We get $2.
Yeah. And I guess I want to go off that too. Like this idea that you get $2 off the book. There are probably people in the chat who are going like, how does that even make sense? Like the book doesn't cost that much. So generally, let's say a book costs $10, which, as most of you probably know, that is hella cheap for a print book right now. But let's say, for argument's sake, there's a book that's $10. I think one of the Furries Among Us is $8. I think THP has a couple $10 books, not many, but a couple. But let's say a $10 book. If we're publishing it through, let's say, Amazon KDP, which is a printer and distributor, they might take $6 or $7 of that completely. And they even break it down for you as if that matters to you. They'll say, oh, so because we're printing it, that costs like $3 or $4. To even have it up on Amazon, that costs another $2 or $3. If they're posting it on BarnesandNoble.com and someone buys it on that, I think they say, oh, well, that takes an extra $2 or $3 because we have to offer it to them at a discount.
And then you're talking about taxes after that.
Right. So so for a $10 book, we might get $2, maybe, depending on where it's sold through. Technically, I think at least for THP, I can't speak to Weasel Press, but with THP, if you buy it through our store Envy, the way that works is it pays the publisher directly, and then we buy like a print copy, like a contributor copy ourselves through KDP. So like we're just paying the print cost. So that's like the most profit is through store Envy for us.
Yeah, I mean, and when you buy, so like I know for me, when I purchased copies off Ingram, it's about $8, I think, just for a black and white book, not color. Color's a bit more.
Yeah.
That's about $8 per order that we get out of a maybe $10 sale or $16 sale, depending on what the book costs.
Yeah.
So Ingram Spark is a little bit different. It works the same way as KDP, but it's like Ingram Spark is offering the book at a 55% discount to other retailers. So whether you're going to bookshop.org or if you're going to Barnes & Noble, you buy a book at Barnes & Noble, Barnes & Noble will put the order in through Ingram, and they're doing it at a 55% discount. Then they take out the print charges and shipping and taxes.
Right.
And all of what you just explained, like all of that gets taken out from there, and that's what we get afterwards. Is that remainder.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love Ingram. I love the print quality of Ingram and distribution assets to Ingram, but it doesn't offer much in return.
Yeah, agreed. And just echoing off what you said too, this idea of paying out of pocket. Especially when these debates are happening, there's this really crazy assumption, and I guess it's not crazy because if we look at major publishers, they're making just well, I think thousands would be an understatement. Major publishers like Penguin or Random House or Tor or whatever, they're making thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not. I bet there's one publisher that makes hundreds of thousands. But anyway, they're making money, like serious money from their books. They appear in physical bookstores, all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, what you have to remember about the bigger publishers is that they're doing print runs.
Yep.
They're not doing print on demand.
They're doing print runs.
They're doing a solid print run that they can afford.
Yep.
And it's like you and I, we don't have $1,000 to print off 100 copies.
Right. So with that in mind, it's like people are in those kinds of writing communities, and then they look at Furry and say, "Why aren't you guys paying the industry standard?"
That was a conversation that happened a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it did. And as Ocean says, it's important to note that in Furry, most anthologies are paid out of pocket from the editors. Main anthologies are paid from the publisher's coffers. Absolutely. And like, I know, as you were saying, you paid for this out of pocket. Now, I think some people would go, well, you're making all this money from the anthology, so your pockets are being filled with money that could have been for the authors.
No, we're making it back. That way we can have another anthology.
Right.
Like if I want to secure the next 4 issues of Omer, I don't even want to think about how much that's going to cost. The next issue alone is probably going to be about $700.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's why you started an Indiegogo for yours, and we have Kickstarter for Diversity too.
Yeah, and that's like what Boy said, if we make it back.
Yeah, if we make it back. Big if. As Macchio says, Arcana costs about $550 and think I've made back about $25. Yeah. So it's like there's that really, really crazy disconnect. And it's like, again, like a big part of that, because even if we look at, I don't even remember, because I'd have to have the royalty spreadsheet up in front of me that Cedric has, but like, let's say Macchio makes 50% of royalties for Arcana. I don't remember what the actual percent is, but let's say that's the case. If most of the sales have been, to just give a random number, let's say most of the sales have been through Barnes & Noble, that means a net of about maybe 75 cents to $1, because Barnes & Noble for a copy.
Mm-hmm.
So then 50% of that, it's like $25 all of a sudden sounds reasonable. Logical based on that math.
Yeah. I was like, I can put it in a different way. We had a book a year ago that was put out called Talk Like Jazz. And the author sold a couple hundred copies. I mean, it was fairly decent amount of sales. And Ingram broke it down. It's like, I think it made close to 1,000 in sales, and it took about 800, maybe a little bit more from that for print costs and distribution fees. And so we had to split that with the author himself, and he was disappointed because he thought he was going to get half of $1,000. It's like, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask.
Yeah, Ocean asks how we decide to price our books. If you're only making $2 per $10 book, why not charge $12 or $15?
So Omer is actually $16, and we still get about $2 per book. But the one thing I do want to note is, like, we try to keep it close to what you would pay at like Barnes and Noble. Yeah. And if you go for a normal paperback book, it's about $15 there.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, so I can't speak to every publisher's philosophy on this. I couldn't even imagine trying to. But I know at least with THP, our books have tried to be between $8 and $20 has been our kind of general range, with exception because like the Furry Cookbook is a hardcover, full color, and I think English Spark wouldn't let us price it at $20. But I know from at least my personal experience, having worked at an in-person dealer's den, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination trying to diss on other furry publishers by a long shot, but I will say that a lot of people would come to our table at a furry convention and say, wow, I think you guys have the most affordable furry books right now. And they'd buy things from us with that as a primary motivation. So, I mean, I was kind of proud of that in that moment. And it doesn't yield the most sales by a long shot. It doesn't yield the most profits is what I meant to say. It doesn't yield the most profits. But I know that for a lot of my publishing house's authors, they often valued hearing from fans more often than they valued hearing they made an extra $3 or $4. So, I mean, that's, and I'm not saying that's the way everyone should be by a long shot, but that's just a stance that we kind of took as a house.
Yeah, I know for me, it's like, you have to remember, I didn't start off as a furry publisher. Mm-hmm. I started off as a poetry publisher. And poetry market is a very different market than furry marketing. A lot of what our authors would do is they would purchase print copies and they would go on like a small tour. And that's how they would make their money, is by going on tour, doing speaking engagements, doing readings. Like, it's a very different marketing tactic than what furry would do. So a lot of what we had to do was price it in a way that when someone bought it right then and there, it had to be easy cash exchange, because not everyone has $16. That's an extra $1 or $2 you have to finagle. Yeah. It's like you have to make it to where the cash can be easily exchanged, and that's kind of how we had our mindset going. For furry books, it's we just kind of kept it that way. Yeah. I try to keep it within $8 to $12 if it's a book that's under a couple hundred pages. Yeah. But even then, like that's still a lot. Yeah, for sure. Still a lot that gets taken out. Yeah. And Macchio posted in the chat at $15 makes $1.78 per copy. Yep. So.
Yeah, and it's you and I do this more so as a passion project. Neither of us are like. I know for me personally with THP, even with books I edited, I refused to take any royalties out of it. I refused to. in books I edit to this day for either press, yours or mine, I refuse to take any profits from it. So for me, it's really a passion project.
Yeah, I mean, I started Weasel Press as a passion project, but now that I'm unemployed, I'd like to be a bit more sustainable in that way. So at some point, I would like to see sustainability out of this press, but a lot of what we do is we funnel our own money into the projects that we create.
And you're saying you're unemployed. I am employed right now, but I think I make, I want to say 17,000 a year.
Yeah.
So
and I say that I'm unemployed. I don't get unemployment like other people, and because my situation is a bit different, I didn't even get the tax check that came out earlier this year. So I have no financial backing at the moment.
Yep. So we definitely do this at times at a loss. Yeah, very much so. Macchio says, "Thank you for passionate projects. You help get a lot of good stuff out there." We try to.
We try to.
We try very hard.
We're not the best at it.
No,
I'm definitely not the best at it.
No, me neither.
But we try to, and it's like we want to make projects that you don't see in the fandom that much at all. That's what drives us.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I had a huge blog post a year or so ago about this very topic, and it got for a blog post for me, it got pretty popular, and I was kind of surprised by that. But the idea behind it was that idea of the passion project. And for me, I'm mostly invested in producing anthologies that people haven't seen before. The people are interested in things that can challenge furry writers. I know earlier this year we had the book Sensory Details come out because I just wanted to challenge furry writers to say what makes furry senses, if we have animal traits as furries, how do extra senses affect our writing or our characters. And that was a fun challenge, and the writers really rose to it. I know my old house, I keep saying my house, Thirst Now Publications does churn out a lot of horror anthologies because that's something that just wasn't happening a lot of. So for me, a lot of it was that idea of I want to give people a lot of opportunities for fun. I wanted to have people seeing things they'd never thought of before. And, let's talk about just sales itself, because that's something we haven't talked about. We've talked about how much money we get per book. Like, we haven't talked about, like, what good numbers are. Because, like, for me, most of the books that are printed for an anthology are literally contributor copies. Sometimes a book might have 20 contributor copies sent out, and it makes 5 sales total ever. Like, that's literally it.
Yeah.
And it's like, for me, that's still a success because the writers still enjoyed it and had fun with it.
Yeah. For me, it's because we don't have a lot of furry anthologies. Like my house in general just lacks on furry projects, which we need more of. But I know, taking Omer into consideration, Omer was the first time I actually saw a furry 100 sales, and that was, to me, that was a big deal because we're only making like $2 a sale, but it broke 100, as opposed to something like Knotted that maybe made 20. I'll say 30, counting the copies that Fur Planet purchased. Because Fur Planet does purchase some of our books for their store. So about 30. And that was for a BDSM anthology. But other than that, like, our books don't see more than 10 to 15 sales.
Yeah, I think some of our record lows have been 5 copies. I think our record highs have been like, I think Furries Among Us has sold maybe 400, 500 copies total, like, in its lifetime. But that's a very exceptional project that appeals to non-furries a lot too.
Yeah. I know our lowest selling book, and I don't edited it, and I don't mean to knock it. It's not a that's
fine.
It's not an irritation, but I know our lowest selling book has, I think, 2-3 sales.
Was that 12 Days of Youthfulness?
No. 12 Days of Youthfulness went up to 6.
6 copies finally.
But like Furry Haiku, I think only has a couple of sales.
Yeah, so, I can believe it. And that's probably like one of the cheapest books you have too, isn't it?
About, yeah, it's about the same as Vagabonds when that was out. So about $8, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like even though I said my range is like from 5 copies to 400 or 500, I think the average is probably 15 to 20. That's probably the average.
Yeah, I would agree with that on my end.
Yeah.
Because like, again, we tried to distribute through other people like Fur Planet and Fossil Shorn, but that doesn't always happen, especially with some of our projects and how payment entities are, and so it gets a bit difficult with some of our projects.
Domus asks, what's the most anthology projects you've worked on in a single year? For me, I think, because I'm nuts and go crazy with anthologies, like the most I've done is probably like 9 or 10. As far as worked on, period. I'm not going to say put out in a year, but even then, I might have put out 10 in a year.
I'd have to say for me, it's about 6. It's like 6, but on top of that, I'm kind of the only person in my house too. So it's like I have 6 anthologies that I work on top of like 20 or 30 book projects that I'm working on at the same time. So I may not have as much as you, but I have as much in other ways.
But I also just love this self-punishment anyway. I have a literary SM relationship with myself. Absolutely. A few things here. Nini Curious says, I'm one of the folks who bought Furry Haiku. So yay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Domus says he loves my anthologies. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try with them. Voice says that's because I'm a publishing beast. I'm something. I think I'm more of a publishing mess some days. Ocean says, I know Inhuman Axe and Claw both sold about 30 paper copies in the weekends they came out. Yeah, that's pretty good. Con releases make a huge difference. I know even when I sold at a con, which I've done 2 or 3 times, that's like the most sales we've ever seen in a weekend.
Yeah. I know for me, I could never actually justify going to a con personally. Yeah. I think going to conventions is wonderful and it helps publishers in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. For Weasel Press, it's not a justifiable thing because we're spending so much just to get to that con and making sure we have the stock and making sure that we have funding to even eat. Yeah. You know, it's like we'd be throwing in so much money and we wouldn't make as much, I don't think. And so I could personally never justify a con, but that's not to knock going to conventions. Right. It's a very good way of selling books.
Yeah, but it's kind of like with you and I in our economic situations where both of us are definitely making, combined, we're making less than $20,000 a year combined. Yeah. So like the idea of, so that all the times I've been to a con, I've always made, I think, 90% of what it costs me to go to it and have all the stuff prepared. Because cons are like, you need to pay a buttload to even be at the con as a dealer. And if you want a power outlet, there's more money. And you have to buy the stock, of course, and pay for all the shipping for that. You have to find transportation, you have to pay for a hotel room.
So it's like a flea market in a way. Yeah. And for those who don't know, I used to deal bootleg DVDs at a flea market. So a lot of what Hal is saying is something I'm familiar with.
Yeah. So it's like I almost made up completely the amount it cost me to deal at the con. And even if I made that extra 10% and completely made even, the fact is I still would have had to pay all of that up front. And I'm rarely at a point where I can pay all that up front, even if I can expect to get it all back. I'm rarely at a point where I can actually pay that up front.
Yeah. I know I can say for me, when I was employed, I would be able to sit down and schedule out payments for the authors because we don't release a book until all of the authors are paid. Mm-hmm. That's always been our practice. Yep. And so like when I was employed, I would say, okay, I have this many paychecks coming up in the next year. This is how many people I can pay at each point in time. Yep. But I had a point to that. I don't know where I was going. But it's like I hear you with not making it back. Yeah. So
there's a lot of praise for Inhuman Acts, so definitely check that out.
Yeah, and it was like I've read Inhuman Acts, and it's actually a really solid anthology.
Yeah. Fuzz says the lack of cons for 2020 has really affected publishers because they were about half of our sales. Absolutely, I totally can see that.
Yeah, I would agree to that too.
Yeah. Armored Fox Press pretty much lost all of their sales as they primarily sell at cons and not online. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know with Weasel Press, again, because a lot of our poets would, they go on tour. Those tour sales are gone too.
Yeah, exactly.
Granted, we didn't see any profit from the tour sales. We would get our profit just from what little the author would pay us, and that's not to knock what the author pays us. It's just we sell our books at a discounted price to the author, and they would go on tour. Right. So that's how we made our money back with because all the readings are gone, and even the online readings aren't making that much money. That's kind of a done deal as well right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe after COVID, we're going to have to pack 2 years into one or something. Be like, okay, January through July, we're going to do all the 2020 cons. And then August through December, we'll do all the 2021 cons.
You and I don't have to share a table. I don't know about that.
Yep.
Because even then, we don't even know what that'll look like in 2021.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I think some cons have.
We might be out. It's looking like we're going to be out for 2021 too.
Yeah.
Welcome to our COVID panel. What other questions or discussion topics do you guys have for us? Because I can't say we love talking about money because it's actually dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of dread knowing that after this I'm going to get out more acceptances for anthologies and being like, I'll pay you at some point.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's not really that much of a laughing matter, but it's it's what we do.
Yeah, so. It's what we do. We've done this for. It feels like it's been forever, doesn't it?
It does.
You and I started about the same time.
It does. I know. I started out as a literary magazine called Vagabonds in 2012, and then Weasel Press didn't even come into existence until 2 years later.
You're old.
Fuck you.
Yeah. Well, I started in 2014, so it was just 2 years after you did. And we actually met through publishing too, because I published your book, We Live for Half Moons, and I think I appeared in one of your anthologies or something too, around that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how we met. I mean, you accepted one of my books. We've been partners business-wise for a long time, and now we're here.
Yeah, that publication was The Dowry.
Oh, was it? Okay.
What do you think the furry writing and publishing community can do to get us to a point where we can increase rates?
I think it's hard to say because of COVID and how tight money is for everybody right now. I think right now we're kind of in the middle of a hurricane, a really long hurricane that we don't know the outcome of. Yeah. I know we can do what we can and push sales on Twitter and other social media. Yeah. We have things like our dealers did that's happening right now. Yeah. I don't know what else that would look like.
And I mean, I know that my immediate answer to it is reading and promotion. If I were to say if the top 5 in terms of Twitter followers, if the top 5 furry writers were to post a link to a book they liked, a furry book that came out in the past year, and did that maybe once a week, that would make a huge difference. I wish these furry writers would actually be furry readers as well, because we so rarely get reviews, we so rarely get sales even. So it's like
you can keep going. I have a point on the followers though, because you don't really know who's actually following, and that's kind of a gamble that you have to take. Yeah, it's just someone's Twitter followers, because I know Weasel Press at one point had 10,000 followers on Twitter, and over 80% of that was spam.
Yeah.
So
I know Furry Book Month has been helpful because I like how Linnea had that little Furry Book Month challenge that a lot of people have been participating in. And
catch up.
Yeah, I think I'm actually caught up surprisingly.
I have a whole week to do.
But it's like suddenly people are getting to hear about these authors they didn't even know were authors. And that's kind of nice. I like that. I wish that kind of stuff was happening on a more regular basis, that people would actually talk about each other as authors and actually promote each other's books. Yeah. But specifically you're specifically talking about the idea of increasing rates. And we responded the way we did because the reality is that if the publishing house was, at least each of our own respective publishing houses, if we were making more money than just breaking even, we'd be able to do that. We'd be able to increase rates.
Yeah. It's more so a matter of we need to actually get on the stepping stool and get to the first step.
Right.
So, a lot of it for us, and a lot of it is Twitter too. It sucks to say that that's like your only social media source, because Facebook isn't entirely used by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when I've posted on Facebook, I see very little clicks or views or any kind of interaction.
Yeah.
I think I had one comment on your book, Blood Criminals, a year ago, saying this looks like it'd be good. And I don't know, that probably didn't even result in the sale, but so in a way, I want to say reaching out to bookstagrammers might help too, but I don't know what that would entail. I know authors who know more about that don't talk to me right now, but so I hate the idea of limiting it to just Twitter.
Yeah,
it's a very frustrating feeling for me.
Yeah,
we can do what we want with like YouTube, but even furry YouTubers probably don't receive that much. In views.
Right.
How do you make it more visible, I guess is the question we should be asking.
Yeah, because I guess that's the real answer is the way we can increase rates is by bumping sales, which requires a bump in visibility.
Yeah, because we don't have a marketing budget like Janine Cummins.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have Penguin or HarperCollins' marketing budget. We just don't. I know what I'm trying to do with Omer, because we're trying to do several things with Omer.
Right.
We are bringing together not just furry authors, but we're trying to bring together photographers and creators. And it's a sex-focused magazine, so I mean you're looking at mersuiters and kink-focused images, and we're trying to kind of get them to share it and see how that fares. At the same time, we're looking at setting up our own Discord and trying to get some kind of weekly engagement going. Maybe it's a weekly interview session or something. But we're doing something on, at least in a week from now, we'll be doing something on Discord. I think the Weasel Press will at least have a Discord channel.
Yeah, and I know that book has been interesting too because we're actually putting advertisements in there, and people will be paying for advertisements in issues after their first free ad.
We hope.
We already have one person confirmed, so we're getting there. So that's being nice.
Yeah, because if 10 like and it's a magazine, so like if 10 people actually paid for advertising, that pays all of my contributors right there.
Right. And then Ninny Curie says, I've definitely read and reviewed a lot more books this year because of everything going on. Yeah, I think we've even bumped up, I think, the number of reviewers we have for Free Book Review, which has been nice. So if you ever want to apply for Free Book Review, let us know. Let me know. Because with COVID, I've seen a lot more people reading this year, which is nice.
Yeah. I think another thing is, and something that I am very bad at, it's something that I try to work with, but I can't because just my schedule just doesn't allow for it, is the creation of ebooks.
Yeah.
I mean, because people are at home, their first source is going to be Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even Amazon sales will net you about 60 cents, I think.
Right.
But the creation of ebooks and making it more accessible for people with disabilities that have to read ebooks. So that's another thing that we probably should look into. I know Fur Planet and the other publishers do ebooks a lot with Bad Dog Books. And so, and Fuzz, I have your email. I'm going to get to it at some point. I just haven't had a chance to get back to you.
And Janora said earlier, especially since a lot of folks aren't on Twitter anyway.
And that's true. A lot of people aren't on Twitter. Just like there's a lot of people who aren't on Facebook or people who aren't on Instagram. I know TikTok is a big thing right now because of all of the recent controversies, and it's almost like Vine in a way. But I'm not even sure how books and TikTok even, like, that would be a learning curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to do a little bit of research on what that would look like. What does advertising books on TikTok look like versus what it looks like on Instagram. Because on Instagram, you set up a table, you have some background stuff, and you make it look all nice, and you edit it in Photoshop, and it's like, ta-da, here's the book. But there's just, with Instagram, you don't get much interaction with it. You get a lot of likes, but not a lot of sales.
Yep. And I see that Fuzz just now said, no worries, dude. I'd be happy to help with ebooks too. Anyone has some help there? He also says, Amazon and other mainstream outlets are annoyingly Puritan.
Yeah, and that's something we should probably focus on together as a fandom anyways, is ensuring that our sales are coming directly to the publisher rather than outside sales like Amazon. There's a new retailer that's out there. I don't quite know. Am I in the way?
Nope.
Okay. There's a new retailer that's out there. I don't quite know what the return is on that, but bookshop.org is, like, if anyone's going to not buy from a publisher, I would say bookshop.org, because then that money goes to indie bookstores that the person can actually decide who they want to support.
Yeah.
So, like, back in my hometown in Houston, it's like, if someone in Houston bought from bookshop.org, they could say, I want to support Brass's bookstore.
Yeah.
And even though not a lot of money is coming to me, it feels good to at least know that I'm helping an indie bookstore rather than a corporate bookstore.
Yeah. Just looking at chat real quick, because it's going fast, which we like. It says, someone said, I love Bookshop. I buy almost all my books there now. And this is our dog, Tamerida. She is an attention slut, and we love her.
Yes, we do. For the person who said bookshop.org, I think most of my books have started getting onto bookshop.org. If you're looking for a title that's not on there, let me know, and I actually have a contact I can email for that to get it up on there.
Fuzz says, if you distribute via LSI or Ingram Spark, your books will likely be on bookshop.org.
Yeah, I've noticed that, but I've also been aware that some of the books haven't, so I've had to email them a couple of times. My
Smile dollars goes to Clarion Workshop. I'd totally go for free publisher instead.
Okay, I'm not quite sure.
Amazon Smile is like when you buy something, it donates a portion of it. I think it donates a portion, or you have to donate an extra to a charity of your choice automatically.
Okay.
It's like a function. I think it's through Amazon, I think.
Okay. And that's good too. Like, supporting charities or something that you should be doing. It's Amazon at the same time, but that's.
I think it's Amazon Smile. I can be wrong. Yeah, he's right.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Yeah. Okay. So I mean that's a good feeling too, to know that our books are if anyone buys, that Smile dollars can go to a charity.
Yeah.
I would also say, forget the Kindle Read program.
Matchbook?
Not Matchbook. No, there's a different one. It's like a Netflix for ebooks.
Oh.
Kindle Unlimited, I think is what it's called. Yeah. I would forget that, because like I was looking at some of your books on Kindle Unlimited, and for the amount of pages that get read, we only receive maybe 2 or 3 cents off of it.
Yeah.
So that's not even a worthwhile venture.
Yeah,
Kindle
sure.
Unlimited. Okay. It's a registered Raw Workshop, which is a registered charity. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah,
there are options.
There are definitely options out there.
Yep. They talked about Unlimited in a panel yesterday. Some of those are apparently difficult to get unless you're doing something serialized. Oh, for sure. I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, because like again, it's tough. You only get a few cents for. I think your book Blood Criminals had about 400 pages read. It's only like a 150-page book. Yep. So like for 2 or 3 cents on that, what's the point?
Right, exactly. Artie says, I think making some sort of hybrid or combination between writing and other forms of entertainment would be good for sales. I'm not sure how that would work, though, aside from podcasts, maybe voiceovers or audiobooks.
Yeah, and that's kind of something that we're exploring with Omer. The Discord channel, the weekly interviews, not weekly, but frequent interviews. Yeah. Something that Weasel Press could do as an engagement or an experience. One of the things that I loved doing before COVID was actually doing readings at bookstores. When Chris Wise released his book, Colliding with Orion, we packed the house,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of what we did with our own money was like we brought our own food. We made it an experience. Not one person left empty-handed, whether they got a sticker or a bookmark. Like every person got an item, whether they purchased a book or not. They got something at that event, and we just can't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, thinking about other forms of entertainment, I mean, I think I kind of did that with Yiffmas, because in 2 days of Yiffmas, we had the holiday album happening. You get the book, so, you get this musical album to go with it.
Yeah, so we did have a SoundCloud music album. That was a cool thing to do. I know I have an author who creates book trailers for some of his books. They're not the best, but they are entertaining. I know for me, it's like for my book Carnage coming out next year, I'm looking for a BIPOC narrator to help out with an audiobook.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd pay. I don't know how much I'd pay or what that would be because I'm unemployed right now. But I would definitely want to make sure that person got paid for their work.
Yeah.
So I think it all depends on what your book is about, first and foremost.
Yeah.
You know, how you can translate that narrative into something that could be in another form, whether it is through a dramatic radio type program, almost like how they did War of the Worlds and other projects, or book trailers if you know that program.
Now, to be devil's advocate, though, does doing that actually translate to sales?
I don't know. I know for
Yiffmas it really didn't.
Yeah, but I don't know how much of the forefront that aspect took.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wonder if the book itself overshadowed the SoundCloud soundtrack. And looking back, what I would have done is kind of share more songs from it, try to get the community involved in the soundtrack, just to kind of listen to it.
Let's do a post-mortem marketing plan for Christmas this year.
Okay. Okay, let's do that.
Now that it's already dead and no one's buying it, let's.
Yeah. By the way, if you're interested in Yiffmas, I'm at the dealer's den.
Right. Exactly.
So.
Other questions? We still have 15 minutes. We're good to go.
Yeah. So I think Amazon also requires your books to be exclusive. They do. So if you're trying to do Kindle Unlimited, it does have to be exclusive because I've had this happen. I had a book that was pulled from Kindle Unlimited because I had the book on Barnes & Noble at the same time.
Oh, no.
Ebook wise, not print. So it does happen that way. Again, I don't really care about Kindle Unlimited to begin with, so not a big deal for me. But yeah, if you do want Kindle Unlimited, you have to have it 90 days in the Kindle market, nowhere else. So, so that's what I was talking about. Amazon would love to be a monopoly. And in a way, yeah, I agree with it. Amazon would kind of love to be a monopoly with how they're going about.
Oh yeah, they're trying their damnedest.
Yeah.
Jennifer asks, in perpetuity or for a period though?
On the Kindle Unlimited?
Probably.
I think it's 90 days. So if you're trying to do Kindle Unlimited, you have to have the book isolated to Amazon for like 90 days, and after that, you can look at Barnes & Noble and things of that nature.
Fuzz actually says for as long as you want to be in Kindle Unlimited. So maybe there's not a 90-day limit, then maybe it's forever.
See, the email I got said 90 days. At least the email removing my book said 90 days.
Oh.
So that I'm not too sure then.
Yeah.
I might be wrong in that.
Yeah. I might have fun. I was off camera there.
So
other questions or concerns?
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should have just done our panels this way.
No, I mean I really don't. I don't.
Yeah. So Fuzz, I'm not sure if it's anyone's mistake. Oh no, looks like okay.
Oh, it is 90 days. Okay.
So, but either way, I mean, it is Amazon. So.
Yeah, it's Amazon.
I am preoccupied. Your panel description states that you want to be an advocate for more
a more socialist relationship. Yeah, so I wrote that description because I was thinking about specifically about the way that I approach anthologies, at least. Just this idea that for me, I'm writing something inside a community, or editing something inside a community, making a project within a community, and all of us are pretty much, or at least I'm one of the lower income people among that group, if not. I mean, I highly doubt I'm the wealthiest among some of our published authors. I doubt I'm the wealthiest. But anyway, just this idea that approaching projects without a focus on gaining capital, that not being a major priority for me, thinking more about communal art expression needs over capital. So I often don't think about what project ideas could be the biggest sales so much as what's something the writers probably need right now or want more room to express themselves in. So I've expanded the horror market. I sensory details, things like that.
Yeah, I know for me, for like the goal of Weasel Press isn't to make an ass load of money. I'm not trying to get rich off of what we do. But the idea of sustainability is something that I keep in mind whenever I do a book. Because if you can't be sustainable, if you can't keep the press running, if you can't pay them, it gets difficult to even try what you're doing. Right. It gets difficult to be motivated.
Yeah.
So it's not an aspect of get rich quick or even get rich. It's an aspect of what's going to benefit our community and how can we sustain ourselves to continue doing what we're doing.
Yeah. We have a few questions here. So the first one is, I've been trying to gather writers for a self-published anthology. And with the deadline a couple weeks away, I've only had 3 subs so far.
I have been there before. Yeah. I'm currently there right now.
Yeah. So for me anyway, I have a few different strategies for that. Sometimes if I'm confident in what it is just they need more time, I'll push the deadline back. If I think, you know what, they're just authors who I know can write this, I've seen them write it, I just need to get them to submit. I'll actually just private message authors and say, hey, can you please write for this? I do that recently. Swept under the fur rug because we got like 5 submissions, and honestly, I didn't like most of them. So I was like, okay, I know some of these fuckers, I say that endearingly, have written this kind of story before. So I'm going to pester some people and say, hey, I will almost give you guaranteed acceptance if you can write something for this. I'll give you whatever deadline you want. Just do the thing. And they do it. And it's like, okay, we got the anthology together finally.
I know for me it's very different.
Yeah.
If I don't get the submissions, the call is canceled. I don't extend it. And I don't have that interaction like you do with the furry authors either. I'm used to a very different clientele because I'm outside of furry for the most part.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that submit to me, they do it months in advance. So take for instance Vagabonds. So I'm going to do two different anthologies. Yeah. So for Vagabonds, I can open the call today, and in 30 days, I know I'll have 100 submissions waiting for me, and the deadline could be 3 months from now.
Yeah.
With Dancing with Devils, I have no submissions, and I think it ends in December 1st. So getting there.
Yeah.
But it's like I probably won't start seeing people until like that hour of, and if I don't get more than 10 people, that call is probably going to get canceled.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move on to another one because we do several anthologies a year.
Yeah. Janora adds, I've been asked specifically to get in anthologies before, one of which I did get into, so that can work. Yeah. I've done that with a couple, 3-4 anthologies maybe, and it's always been a good time. Another question, what would you recommend to readers or fans who want the furry writing community to flourish? What can we do to help? Well, I know, at least you personally, Artie, you're a furry book reviewer, so I know you're actually reading books, which is helpful. So I definitely say read books, review books. I'd like to see more tweets about books, like this kind of thing we're seeing with Furry Book Month Challenge. Like, I'd like for authors to just say once a week, hey, if you haven't already, go to this link, check out @ person's book if you haven't already.
Yeah. I kind of want to see it go both ways in a way.
Mm.
So for readers out there, the narrative is always, buy the book, talk about the book, review the book, and that's great. That's what you want to do, and that's what you want to have happen. Word of mouth goes a long way. At the same time, I don't know how many authors are engaging with other people. Like I don't, like, I know for poets, it's like we're out there trying to do. We're trying to schedule our readings. We're trying to get some kind of engagement on Twitter. I almost like to see that happen in Furry. So I don't know what that looks like in Furry. But it does go both ways in a lot of aspects.
Yeah. Ocean Ads writers like submitting everything in the last hour. They do. So I've told him before too. Even if you're planning on extending it, I like to tell him to wait until the day of the deadline or the end of that day, just because you will literally get people in the last hour. You will get it. I think the past 10 anthologies I've had at least. In the past 10 anthologies, I've always had submissions in the literal last hour of submission.
Yeah.
So it does happen. And people asking for extensions as Ocean Ads.
And I know for me, like, if 10 people were to come to me and say, hey, I need an extension, almost definitely they'll get it.
Yeah.
And I'll extend the whole call. But I need to be able to see that those numbers exist.
Yeah.
And if I don't see that, then it's kind of like, what am I doing with this?
For me, I'm a last minute writer. So whenever I see that someone's extended their call before it was actually due, I'm like, oh, I have another 2 weeks to procrastinate.
Yeah.
So I still don't get it done on time. I wait the extra 2 weeks.
I know.
He's judging me.
Oh, so much.
What other questions here? Resolute Writes says, I follow the school of thought of Douglas Adams. I love deadlines. I like the whooshing sound they make as they fly by. Yeah, that's definitely a school of thought. That's a choice.
That is indeed a choice.
We have 5 minutes left. Any final quick questions for us?
And just to say, you can always come and talk to us later. We are around on Discord, and you can hit us up on Telegram. So, and we'll post our Telegram information here just a second.
I'll do that just so the people have it. No, not at Telegram. How? That's not how. Telegram is at Thurston Howe and at Systematic. Not Systematic. Systematic. I promise I'm a writer. I promise I am.
So if this is the
they're talking about Zarpalus's anthology. Yep. I don't know my Discord ID. We're in the dealer's den. Find whatever it is.
Yeah. So hit me up at the dealer's den. I'll be at under Weasel Press. Because Discord is still a new thing for me. I'm still trying to figure out my own username. I know it's WZL, and then there's like a hashtag and some numbers behind it.
Yeah.
So not quite sure all of that, but hit us up in the dealer's den. We'll be there.
Yeah. I'm still learning Discord myself. It's weird, and I already feel old because it feels newfangled to me.
I actually like Discord over Zoom.
I would like to. For me, what bothers me about Discord is that all these icons don't have words even when you hover over some of them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know what any of this is. So that weirds me out. Yeah, thank you for attending, Artie. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So I think we have time for one more question.
If there are any.
Yeah, if there are any.
We always appreciate thanks too.
Yeah.
So if it's 3 minutes of saying thank you, I'm okay with that too.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
I think this is our last panel too.
Yeah, and this is like I don't get out in the open in front of people anyways. I'm mostly a background person myself. So it's,
would you say you're socially aggressive?
No, I wouldn't actually. And I'll tell you why later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'm excited. Yeah, thank you all for coming. 'Twas a blast.
Yes, thank you.
Aw, thanks, Nanny Carey. I mean, if there's anything else, then we should just end call, or should we just sit around. We can sit around. You can just watch us sit around awkwardly. And the puns, yes, we always love puns. We love them.
I mean, somebody loves them.
Fine. I see how it is.
You knew what you was getting into when you got with me.
You. I sent you 12 days of Yiffness. Because it's your own form of punishment, correct?
I'll definitely try to check out your panel. I may be in the background because I am working the dealer's den and I'm doing some other things with Omer at the same time, but I'll definitely check it out.
Hells yeah. All right, well, we're going to head off. Thank you all so much for coming.